In the heart of the vast Blackwood Forest stood an old, decrepit cabin. For years, the locals whispered tales of ghosts and inexplicable occurrences that plagued anyone who dared to enter the dense thicket. No one could remember exactly when the first stories began, but everyone agreed on one thing. Something sinister lurked inside the forest. One chilly autumn evening, for friends, Alex, Maya, Ethan, and Lily decided to test their courage. Urban legends had always fascinated them, and Blackwood Forest was the perfect place to get an adrenaline rush. Armed with flashlights, snacks, and sleeping bags, they made their way into the forest just before nightfall. The first hour was uneventful. The friends chatted and laughed, occasionally jumping at every rustling leaf and snapping twig. It wasn't until they reached the old cabin that the air turned thick with tension. Despite its age and the marks of decay, the cabin seemed strangely untouched, almost as if time itself had ignored it. "Do we really want to go in there?" Maya asked, her voice trembling slightly. "It's just a story," Ethan replied, trying to appear brave. "We'll just take a quick look and leave." With a collective deep breath, they pushed the creaky door open. Inside, the cabin was eerily silent. Dust covered every surface, and cobwebs hung like forgotten memories. As they explored the cabin, they found an old journal half buried under a pile of wood. Curious, Alex opened it. The first few pages appeared to be the musings of a man named Jacob, who once lived there. But as Alex read further, Jacob's entries grew darker. He wrote of shadows that moved on their own, whispers that came from the walls. A haunting figure that watched him from the trees. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the cabin. The friends jumped in fright. "What was that?" Lily whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Maybe the wind," Ethan suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. The atmosphere grew colder, and the shadows seemed to stretch and twist in unnatural ways. They decided it was time to leave. But as they approached the door, it slammed shut with a deafening bang. Panic set in. They struggled with the door, but it wouldn't budge. "We need to stay calm," Alex said, trying to soothe his racing heart. They huddled together in the center of the room, their flashlights the only source of light. Moments felt like hours. Whispers began to fill the cabin, the same indecipherable murmurs Jacob had written about. "Who's there?" Maya called out, her voice cracking. There was no response, only the growing intensity of the whispers. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and they could see their breath. Emerging from the darkest corner of the room was a figure, its form barely human, cloaked in shadows. The friends were paralyzed with fear. The figure moved closer, its eyes glowing with an unearthly light. "Leave this place," it hissed. Without thinking, they ran for the door, and this time, it opened effortlessly. They didn't stop running until they were well beyond the forest's edge. Gasping for breath, they vowed never to return to Blackwood Forest. The next day, Lily researched Jacob and the cabin. She discovered that Jacob had vanished mysteriously, and his disappearance remained unsolved.